Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got most of the normal new crew with us. I've got Harvey Green. Harvey, how's it going?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you joining. We had a little stumble, right? Harvey did a routine maintenance on his computer, which in Harvey terms and mine as well means every 6 months you just factory reset the whole thing.
Got to get all the gremlins out.
Oh, that's one way to do it. I don't know why your average end user can't do it that way.
for reasons like the one that I had for this very snafu we're talking about, where I forgot that I had to do some magic for my microphone and did not remember to do that quickly enough.
Well, so Harvey and I both did this over the weekend. We reset our devices. I've got an old Surface, Microsoft Surface, that I wanted to start using again. So I did a reset after my family had been using it a while. And literally the only thing I install is the Citrix Workspace app and take away my admin rights. And I put Microsoft 365 on it. And that's it. And then this morning I came in, I was like, oh, I gotta install Zoom. I gotta change my settings. You don't notice till that first meeting hits. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I forgot about this and that. I got to get XenTegra's support team to take Teams and push that stuff out to me going forward.
Right.
I got John Spallone with us. John's been on what? John, were you on 2 weeks in a row or just last week for the first time?
Just last week.
Yeah, I was in the car listening to this some point over the week. I had my youngest son with me, and I remember them talking to you about last Monday being your first day, and you're already being thrown on podcast.
Yep. Trial by fire.
Even my 12-year-old son was like, "That doesn't sound right, Dad." Like, that's how we roll with XenTegra.
That's right.
Well, it sounded like it went pretty well, other than Harvey getting the episode number off by one and them not letting John talk enough.
We'll fix that this week.
All right, John, you're up.
I'm
up. I don't know if I did a good job. John Spallone's our newest sales engineer here at XenTegra. Long storied background. John, I'll just ask you one more time to repeat in brief, like you did last time, where you come from.
Sure. I basically come from the whole Citrix virtualization app and desktop for several years now, with both at Citrix, other consulting firms, Cloud Jumper, and now I'm here.
And by several years, you mean a decade or more?
Yeah, quite a few decades. I just didn't want to feel that old. Thanks, man.
Yeah, the last two digits of the year probably started with a 9, like 90s.
Yeah, 90s. That's right.
Well, so let's stay on that topic for a minute, because XenTegra never set out to be an infrastructure company. And when I stumbled into what Nutanix really is, after I got over the hump of it being hardware, to me, it was just kind of like the Citrix world, where you just took software and applied it, and all of a sudden you had a solution. Is that where your background with Nutanix kind of falls to? How did you get into the world of Nutanix, or was it last Monday's podcast when you got in the world of Nutanix?
It's pretty much last Monday's podcast.
Yeah.
No, I've had familiarity with it. Really, it came out while I was working in the cloud with Citrix Cloud. So there wasn't a lot of interaction with me at first, but very familiar with the solution, very familiar with what they offer and how they optimize and provide complete infrastructure and stability for a virtual desktop environment or any other compute infrastructure.
I think it came out last week when I listened to it. You guys talked about Nutanix and how its origins really were in the VDI world, and how it just makes a ton of sense for hyperconverged workloads to go there.
No, definitely. It's a huge fit. I mean, it plugs in that hole perfectly for customers that are looking for a one-stop solution of their overall environment that they're going to spin up.
I just got off a customer success call where the customer has a extremely well thought out, well architected 3-tier environment. And my comment to him, I don't want to pick a fight here. I don't want to call your baby ugly, but at the same time, I bet your baby's really expensive.
Yeah. Yep. We have that conversation often. Everybody always laughs at my analogies, but that's one that I pick up on. I talked about, getting food back and forth, and it was I can give you a police escort. I can clear the streets for you. I can put a Lamborghini out there. I can put a driver in it, right? We do all these things to try to make it fast enough for you to go down the street and come back. And it's still not faster than just taking the elevator down to the basement cafe and getting something to eat. You can spend all the money in the world to make that trip as fast as you can make it, and you still probably won't beat being in that same building or on that same node.
I think that's funny because I live in an area of Charlotte where guys do literally drive Lamborghinis to the grocery store. And I can't figure it out. I mean, okay, you can't drive it fast. There's cops up and down the road. You can't fit any groceries in it. You just drove that because you wanted me to see you pull up in that Lamborghini.
Well, I'll make it even worse for you. He probably drove it because he hasn't driven it all year. It's just been sitting in the garage.
Yeah.
And those were his 2 miles he had to put on it so that it wouldn't freaking die on him.
Yeah, make sure it still works.
Right.
I guess my brain's kind of running out of control on that example we gave just now. And, there have been a couple of times recently, I'll be interested to get y'all's reactions. I don't know if you're car guys or not, but I know Harvey drives a Tesla, so he's kind of understands speed and practicality all at the same time.
Yes.
There's been a couple of times in the last year or two, I've seen what I thought was a Lamborghini pull up, but it was a, much more cost-effective Chevy Corvette. I guess that gives you speed, gives you all the speed you need, you get the looks, but it's much more cost effective. I don't know. Is that a great example of hyperconverged, kind of thinking outside the box, but still covering your bases?
Sort of.
Yeah. Or is the 4-door Tesla 3 model where it's fast and cost effective, gets the job done? Is that, or maybe better yet, more of the hybrids, SUVs, hybrid?
Yeah, I think that would be a better example too, because you get the practicality, you get the fast, the speed, the performance, but it's also like a new way of thinking.
Yeah,
it's not just oh well, I'll just take out what I have and stick Nutanix in and everything will be fine. I mean, yes, everything will be fine, but you have to learn a new way of thinking because everything's there now. It's different.
Yeah. I'll use my own personal example. My brother was here this weekend. He's a racing guy, like a NASCAR racing guy, and he's into big iron stuff, or has been. He drives a Tesla Model 3 now. And it's all the same reasons. Like he wants to go fast. He wants to be cool. But a lot of the same things apply. It's just somewhere along the way, his brain started thinking a totally different way. And he's accomplishing very cost effectively and efficiently what he's always wanted, which was fast and attention getting.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the fast. I definitely like the performance and the capability of not having to go to the gas station anymore.
Yeah,
I don't really care whether or not you look at me and think it's cool. I like it.
Oh, you still get a little attention. You like that part.
Yeah, I mean, I like that other people like what I like, but I'm not doing it to be a celebrity or to, be somebody that people say, oh yeah, go talk to Harvey. I mean, I'll talk to you about it all day because I like it.
Well, keep in mind, I say that a Model 3, not a Model S. Harvey has a Model S.
See, I didn't even mention that. That was you.
All right, let's run this by John. John, what are you driving?
A car. You guys got me there. I'll be honest with you. Definitely, cars are nothing I know. So
yeah. That's kind of like the guy running his Citrix environment on one Xen server. Let's get the job done. I don't care.
Right. It got me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Hey, so I guess we should address the elephant not in the room. And that's that Jaira's not with us today. I forget, Harvey, do you remember where he said he was going to be?
He had some meeting that was more important than us, and
yeah,
we were just way down on the list for him.
But we're sure it's not car shopping, right?
I mean, I'm not even sure it's not grocery shopping. He could be rearranging his sock drawer.
Well, Jaira's been really good to us. We're gonna let him slide this one time. And I do kind of wonder because, we've lived in the world since we started podcasting where, we were all at home in our home offices, and scheduling time to do podcasting was easy. As we start to unfold a little bit, are we going to get to a world where all of us being able to join every Monday becomes harder and harder? I have to assume the answer is yes. I mean, as you can tell, I've been gone for 2 weeks, but we're committed to getting these out every week and giving our listeners, something to consume.
That's right.
So without Jira, we thought we would talk about desktops. I say that jokingly. The blog for today is Windows OS Optimization Essentials Part 1, Active Setup. That thing we all hate as systems admins. And this is by Jake Norman and Damian Gentile from May of this year. I jokingly brought that up as something that we would cover because we're desktop guys, but it is very important to understand when you're running any type of super multi-user shared environment, whether it's the OS shared or the hypervisor underlying platform shared, there's just a bunch of crap that needs to be mitigated. One of which, and we're going to talk about today, is the active setup piece that both Harvey and I probably went through in the last 24 hours with these reset up or these re-imaged systems. And I can tell you when mine hit, I had flashbacks to having VDI users getting that every time they logged in and trying to make it stop.
Yes.
Before we jump into this real quick, I do want to point out something for you guys. I sat in a session a bunch of years ago at Citrix Synergy where they talked about, it was about desktop optimization, and they spent 40 of the 45 minutes talking about how to optimize for VDI, pooled workloads. And they spent the last 5 minutes talking about how to optimize for server desktop workloads. And basically the message was all that crud that happens in a desktop, true client OS, all that stuff's turned off or not included in a server OS. So if you're listening to this, the focus of this is going to be about VDI, Windows 10, Windows 11 client OS, and how to make all that bad stuff go away. I'll never forget the first time I saw Candy Crush as part of the Pro or Enterprise version. I thought that was the most insane thing ever. Yes. So, John, do you have any specific examples of your past where some of this client madness kind of got in the way of virtualizing a bunch of desktops?
Yeah, optimization has always been key when it comes to VDI. And like you said, we've got so much that we allow users to customize in it and that they're used to when they have that physical endpoint, and we're now putting it in a virtual world. We still need to give them their look and feel, and that, I guess you would call it a quote unquote control that they used to have and they think that they still have. So yeah, the optimization has always been key. And you brought up about in the Synergy event. I mean, what is it? A new optimization comes out every 3-4 months now, because we're always finding something better to be able to fine tune, especially when it comes to the VDI side of the house. But yeah, I've done plenty of these in the past, everywhere from customer setups to, just lab work, and even when you're setting up labs for students to take some type of hands-on workshop or something along those lines.
Yeah. And is it about system resource utilization or user experience, or both?
I think you got to take both into account. I mean, really, it's dictated. Everybody has a different focus within it, but when you're taking that desktop away from the user and then putting it within a server environment, virtualizing it, you still got to give them that look and feel to it, but you got to make sure that you're not doing it at a cost from your hardware standpoint and the other users that are going to be in the environment. So I think both definitely play a role in this, a balancing act that you just got to fine tune it and be able to make sure you're not falling one side or the other. Now, it'd be great if you just had somebody come up and say, no, we just want to optimize for performance and that's it, and we don't care about the customer and how it looks and feels. Oh man, I'd love that. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, you'd have that Windows NT look and feel.
A little, was it the 311 for work groups? That's
yeah.
Right.
You installed a USB device. You must restart.
So Harvey, is this thing talking about, I guess first thing I want to ask about is, you remember the first time you saw like an optimization guide where there was no tools There was no
Yes.
optimizing software. It was a guide that was, I don't know, 80 to 180 pages long.
Yes.
You as a consultant got to sit there and get paid to just go through the registry and make all those little changes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Those were always very long, very tedious, and very prone to the human factor, we'll call it. Because when you got we'll call it a 50-page guide of you need to take these steps before you push this machine out to a user. Somewhere in that 50 pages, you're going to get tired of looking at page after page after page, and you'll probably miss something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't tell you how many different times I've taken a guide like that and tried to boil it down to something less wordy and or just be screenshots or something, because you weren't copying and pasting that thing from before either. That was those were trying times.
Well, and the guy in the blog here, it specifically uses the statement infinite number, and that's probably close to accurate, right? There's so many different things that each individual consultant could want to do, but these days we have these tools from Citrix or VMware or even Nutanix where they actually allow you to at least point and click on the things that you want to optimize by default. But the one we're talking about today in this version of the document, which there's going to be several more, is active setup. Harvey, you want to walk us through what active setup is for the people who don't already know?
Yes, it's funny because when we were choosing this one and I was reading through it, I kept looking at those words, active setup, active setup. This sounds familiar, but I have no idea what this is. I know what it is, but I don't know, I didn't have like the whole memory flash, right? And so I started reading through it, and I'll just read the first sentence here. Active setup is a method of executing commands once per user early during the login process. And it also goes on to say that active setup commands are run before the desktop appears, and they block login until the commands are executed. And I read that and I was like, oh yeah.
Didn't you just go through this like 12 hours ago?
Yes, but I never call it active setup, right? To me, and probably to all the people who are listening to this, they're like, this is the crap that happens after you log in, before you actually get a desktop, before you can hit the start button and actually go into a program, right?
This is when you go get a Coke.
Right. And so that's why when it said active setup, I'm like, I've heard these words used together like this before. But I didn't know what it was. What clued me in is at the end of it, they talk about run and run once registry settings. And the whole run once thing is, what clued me into, oh yeah, like that's this stuff.
So to put it in perspective for our listeners, I've gone through this in the last 12 hours. Harvey's gone through it in the last 12 hours when we reset a machine, but that's the one time you do it, when you log into a machine or when you get a new machine or when you reset a machine, when you log in the first time, right? What if every time you logged into your VDI, John, you had to go through active setup? Would you call and open a ticket?
Probably so. If it was me personally, definitely. If I had to go through it every single time, I wouldn't be doing it.
Would you be a happy VDI user if that was your experience every time you logged in for the day?
Oh God, no. No user would be happy with something like that.
I can't imagine anything more, anything that the user would hate more than this, except for when email goes down. This is probably, I would call it the number 2 source of pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question, then I want to know what number 1 is. But if I had $1 million, which I don't, but if I had $1 million, I would bet you guys that somewhere in the world there's a VDI non-persistent environment that still has active setup in place, and every time you log in, this happens.
I'm pretty sure there are. I'm positive.
I would say that you're correct. But I would be wondering whether or not the person who put it in place is still there and alive with all 10 digits and all of their thinking faculties.
I bet I've run into it before where the sysadmin just assumed that's how it worked, and he works and he trained his end users, just that's how it works. Go get a coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, that's painful.
All right. So Harvey, tell me specifically based on the article, which I've got highlighted here, what does active sync, or excuse me, active sync? Oh, that's really bad. Active sync.
That's a totally different one.
That's a whole different problem the end users got to go through.
Active setup. What's it doing the first time it runs compared to all the other times?
Well, so the first time that it's running, theoretically, right, is setting up your initial configuration for that specific application. A lot of times, you know, in more direct terms, right, this is when the program goes out on the C drive and sets up the app data folder, sets up the files that have to be there. Maybe it has a config.txt file it has to read. Maybe it has a .ini file it has to read, right? The default values for what the application needs to run goes out in files, goes out in registry keys, and it actually puts all of that information in place so that you can run the application.
And I'm highlighting on the screen here for you. HKCU is where this madness happens.
Yes.
What's that stand for?
H key current user. It's in the registry.
Now I have a question for you. If you're using something like FS Logics, could you literally leave this on and it would go there and it wouldn't happen again?
Yes. Yes. And absolutely, that is the idea. And that is what you want to do. At times there are, like I said, other files you have to worry about that get written to app data or something like that, that you would want to make sure that you include in that FS Logics profile. Yeah. Or whatever profile management solution you're using. But yes, absolutely, that is exactly what you want to do, so that the user doesn't have to do this every single time they hit a machine.
Well, to be clear, right, we want to avoid active setup at all. However, this H key current user stuff that's in Remote FX, FS Logics, sorry. That's where
bringing up all the use cases for pitchforks and torches.
It's been a few weeks. So I'll let John address the next part, which is, what does this mean for me? And I don't know who me is in the blog.
Yeah, I don't know. That wasn't too clear either. Was it for the admin or was it for the users?
I'm guessing admin, because the user has no idea knowing what H key current user is.
I don't know. There are some smarter users out there. Not many, but there are. So really, I think what it's breaking down to is it's basically it's taking that, well, I mean, what we would say is the persona, the user's persona, and allowing that to execute and be done. So it's not continually doing over and over again. And they're particularly pointing out with the persistent machines and non-persistent on those two different scenarios and how that works within the VDI side of the house, and allowing that profile to actually get that data, that user. And I go back to user persona. It's just the way I like to group it into it, because the persona is covering all of our active setup and restoring, let me get the right words here. It's storing all of that information within their persona, as well as other pieces that are out there for them when they're coming into their VDI. And it allows us to be able to have that gold image. So it gives that capability to bring up a clean, fresh machine every single time, but yet allow the user to still be themselves every time they come in and not have to go through this circle of death over and over again of, hey, this is the first time you're clicking on Adobe. Do you want to do this, or this? Right. This is the first time you're logging in. Do you want to see Office in your startup menu? All of that is going to be stored off in that user persona and allow us to get that gold, clean image every single time we're rebooting.
What if I was a security guy and I would argue that I don't want anything resonant, not even any of this profile stuff, user persona stuff? Am I being uber paranoid?
Today's day and age, I would say yes and no. It really works out to multiple ways. The way I look at it, especially from a VDI standpoint, I have personas to monitor because that's where all the activity is happening. Whereas the hundreds or thousands of desktops, I don't have that anymore because it's just one total locked image. So I've got one image I've got to look at instead of 1,000 images. And now I can just look at a smaller data subset of the user's persona that's stored over in another area. So from security, I think it's a trade-off. I mean, it comes down to working and integrating with security and understanding how this affects them differently, but also benefits them and aids them with being able to focus quicker and faster into what possibly could be a threat instead of this huge, vast environment that they've got to deal with and work with.
Yeah, I mean, security always comes down to trust and what you trust and who you trust. And really from a persistent standpoint, you have to be able to trust the software because it's basically implanting its payload, its registry keys, its files, all of that into each of the machines for each of the users that end up installing it. So you've got to be able to trust that software. From the non-persistent setup, I mean, you do still have to trust the software, but more importantly, you have to trust the image. Because once you put that image out there and make your corrections and take care of anything that you want to take care of from either preventing active setup or adjusting it based on your needs, that's what's going to go out to your users, and it's not going to continue doing that over and over again. So as long as you have an image you can trust, you're in a much better place from a security standpoint than just having users all willy-nilly go out there and install applications that are deploying themselves in your environment.
So you probably won me over as a security guy, knowing I've got to have some user experience stuff in there too, but I'm going to bring it back up to you later whenever I get attacked. No, I'm just kidding. That's one.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you got non-persistent in place and you got an image in place, it should be cleared by your security team. I mean, yes. that only makes sense, because for exactly the same thing that you just brought up, right? I trust you until we get attacked, and then I don't trust you anymore. Well, security should have been part of the process to make sure that you do have an image that you can trust.
Yeah, and I'm just giving you a hard time. At some point, it's a compromise. It always has.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, it is a dance.
Yeah.
So this next section talks about how to prevent active setup and what registry keys. I got to be honest, when I first looked at this, I was expecting to see, yes, these beautiful registry keys, but I was also expecting to see some type of group policy object that had it in it as well. Am I making this up, or yes, you can run a tool that does all this for you. You can do it manually, or to some degree, you could either do these registry changes or set a policy that disabled active setup. Did I dream that?
You did not dream it. That's one of those all of the above answers. You've got a bunch of different ways to do it that include all the way down to group policy, like we talked about. So that doing it through group policy is, I would call it a necessary evil, because you need it to be the same and be consistent. The other way you can be the same and be consistent is by scripting it out, which is one of the other things you named. So.
Yeah.
Or if we're just talking about registry, setting it up on one machine in one place and then exporting the registry keys you need so that you can transfer it somewhere else.
Well, so part of the story around non-persistent images, right? You do it in the gold image, you don't have to do it again, and you can.
Absolutely, that's the way to go. Absolutely. For as many workloads and as many users as you can do it, always start with non-persistent, and hopefully it's at least 80%, and then you deal with the 20%. I hope for you listening that it's more like 90 or 95%, and you deal with the 5 or 10% later. It's very rare that it is 100%, but the closer you can get it to 100, the better you will feel at the end of every day.
So John, let's let you walk through every one of these registry keys and explain what they do.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Let's break them down. No, but going back to what Harvey brought up, I agree 100%. If we're going to lock this down in a gold image, we have it locked down there, and then we can manipulate some of this in policies for those users for the first time run, and we're done. We're ready to go.
But I would add, maybe if there is a tool, which there is these days, use the tool to do and undo. That way you're doing it systematically and you know what's been done. So you don't have to go back and check every possible key later to figure out if it had been done or hadn't been done.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree completely with that. I mean, and then dating myself, going back to this is the way we used to do it.
Oh,
VB
Lord.
scripts and reg edits and calling those out from shares to execute on these machines. Yeah, that was back in the day when we had to actually go through and hand touch every one of these keys.
right. And then the minute the application got an update, everything you did goes up in smoke. So yeah, I mean, even these days now, like there are so many different VDI optimizers that you can use that have things like this built into them. As long as you trust the source of the actual application, then absolutely you can use those. But even with using those, there are still some things out there that you might want to do that it didn't cover, or there's some things that, maybe this particular optimizer does 100 different things and you only wanted 98 of them, and you have two things to go back and take care of. Still saves you a whole lot of time versus putting in just the 98. But again, just you got to make sure you trust the source, and you have to make sure that at the end of that optimization, it is actually what's working for you and what you desire for your end user experience. Because you can use an optimizer and at the end of it still have unhappy users because you put something in place that is stopping them from doing what they want to do or what they need to do.
I think one key element of that I would recommend for everybody is, do your optimizations, then give it to a peer and let them try to break it or figure out what's not optimized or what's not user experience friendly, and then start maybe piloting it with users.
Right.
Yeah.
So this next section says, what are the potential downsides to altering active setup?
I can answer that without looking. You alter active setup, it all of a sudden doesn't work. That's a potential downside.
Okay, and do I need that for the most part when I'm in a controlled environment or not?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of that depends on the application. There are a lot of applications that will continue to work even if you don't go through active setup or if you disable it. Those are a lot of the ones that it would make sense to do by policy or handle them by setting, presetting the registry keys or the files that you need. But I am more than certain without looking that there are applications that just will not work at all unless they have some sort of active setup. With the exception of if you're doing it in a golden image and just propagating it down, but they're still arguably then there's still an active setup. It just didn't take place every time the user logged in. It just took place the first time, or for the default profile, or however you're setting that up. Oh gosh, saying default profile brought back bad memories too.
You want to read only default, read only profile? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, that's the good old mandatory profile. That can be even worse.
Yeah, not a customized, but a configured mandatory profile where you then had to use some tool to try to export it off. By the way, not supported, but what you promised the customer you were going to do for them.
Yeah, fun times.
So this next section talks about what to optimize and what not to optimize in active setup. Gets pretty deep here. Don't need to go into that unless you guys are just stoked and want to go through that.
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, especially when it comes down to active setup, you're going to see it in the local machine. That's the key places where it's going to be pulled from for those users.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going through this part of it and looking at it, this is kind of one of those, if you look at this at first glance and it looks like it's Greek to you, don't touch it because it's all registry. And if it looks Greek to you, then you probably shouldn't be in the registry trying to follow this. And if you look at it and you go, oh, okay, that's only, I don't know, 8 keys or whatever it was that are there, then you're probably okay. to go in and do it. But you still need to, like anything else, you still need to respect it, right? You have things here that you're modifying in the registry, and if you don't respect it, you could end up causing yourself a lot of grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing to note in this article, if you go down to the what next, there's some additional links to go into a template image creation and optimization service, and it's also focusing on Windows 10. So just to be aware of that, off of anybody listening to this, this is the focus of this blog here, to get that data, Windows 10, and some additional links.
Yeah. Well, remind me again while we're talking about active setup in a Nutanix blog.
Well, to quote this guy I know named Andy Whiteside, it's all about the apps. The user experience is king. The user always wants to be able to use their apps. It is all about the apps.
Well, in this case, we're talking about apps, but what's the main app we're talking about here?
Windows.
Windows. What's the most widely used Microsoft app in the world?
Windows. Yeah, you better believe it. And for those that say Windows is not an app, it's not an app, it's an operating system. Yeah, that's somewhat true, but it's still an app.
Just an app that gets us to all the other things we have to do.
I mean, I think we could also make the claim that we have been able to eliminate that app in some cases, and people still run all the other apps that they need. So we'll still call it an app.
Well, you say that, but I mean, SaaS apps, yes, there's still a browser running on something somewhere along the way.
Yes.
Or there's, application publishing, but still has Windows underneath it somewhere.
That is also true. Yep, that is also true. But you can also host applications from other operating systems as well, and not even involve Windows. So it's possible, but it is definitely the most widely used app that there is. I would still agree with that for sure.
I think Bill Gates is still the richest man in the world. If not, he's number 2 or 3.
Oh, he's still up there.
Yeah, I think he's 2 or 3 right now. Yeah,
He's still up there.
the divorce didn't help much.
I was gonna say he just wrote a humongous check, but he's still up there.
Huh. I didn't know that was final.
Yeah,
It is final.
when you're rich, those things get final a lot quicker.
Yeah. Wow. All right, guys. Well, it sounds like the next time we cover this topic, we'll be talking about the Windows Store, which, believe it or not, I'm kind of excited to find out what we should be doing there, because I love having that thing, the Windows Store, on my persistent workloads, but definitely see issues with it in the non-persistent pooled world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can't say there's a lot of apps in Windows Store that I love, other than a handful of them, including the Citrix Workspace app. But other than that, there's a lot of craziness out there. It floors me every time I do a search in that thing, what pops up.
Yeah.
That brings a whole new conversation that we were talking about earlier about, defining what you trust and what you don't. You're supposed to be able to trust the Windows Store, the Microsoft Store.
There's a lot of stuff out there that looks scary, but I guess.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're out of time this week. I appreciate you jumping on, and we'll do this again next week. We'll have Jaira back to make sure we have his wisdom, which is extremely valuable. And we'll find another day down the road where we can talk desktops when he's not around.
That's right.
Sounds great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.